By a show of hands, does anyone in the audience maybe recognize this painting? So quite a few hands. Can anyone maybe call out the name of it to me? Just call it out. The Scream. Yes, exactly. Painted 1893 by Edvard Munch. Quite a few interesting number of emotions on display here. Can anyone maybe call out some of these emotions to me? Call them out. Fear? Yeah. Panic maybe? Right? Yeah. How about maybe who these two individuals in the background are, or even why the central figure is painted in such a distorted fashion? Any guesses? Fewer guesses. I expected that. Because I'll admit, this painting is very hard, maybe even impossible to interpret without proper context. So, 1893, Edvard Munch is on a walk with two of his friends, and he's crossing over this bridge, over this massive fjord, and he freezes. And he actually describes in a poem on the back of this painting how, in that moment, the sky seemed to turn the color of blood, and tongues of fire stretched across the fjords before him. All the while, he heard the infinite, terrifying scream of nature, while his friends walked on unaware. So it's more clear now to us that Munch in this moment was experiencing an existential crisis or an anxiety attack, and this painting is a portrayal of that event. And we can see the two figures in the background are his friends walking on unaware, and we can see Munch almost seems to lean into the nature and environment around him as he enveloped and succumbs to this feeling of insignificance. So I just find this painting to be an excellent metaphor for anxiety in general because it shows how difficult it is for us to recognize it. Um, Anxiety is not something we can see. It's this chemical imbalance within our brains, and we're left to diagnose it based off its effect. But even with Munch displaying such telling effects, none of us were able to recognize it as anxiety. So if we're not able to recognize it here, how are we ever going to recognize it in ourselves with the knowledge we have right now? And this is even more concerning when we realize that this lack of recognition can contribute to the development of depression, adverse cardiac events, substance abuse, and even suicidal ideation. So it's my hope that we can all leave here today with a greater knowledge of not just how to recognize it, but also how to respond to it. So before I talk about how to maybe recognize it in ourselves, I think it's important that I acknowledge maybe a potential stigma some of us have about anxiety in general. Because if you're like me, then at some point during this talk, you probably thought, I don't have anxiety, this doesn't apply to me, I might get stressed out sometimes, but I've never been diagnosed, so I don't have anxiety. But in reality, anxiety can affect any of us acutely or chronically. Like, for example, like I said, I shared a similar viewpoint until in conducting my research, I began to notice some of these symptoms in myself, like before a test or before a soccer game or even maybe right now. But so then, what were some of these signs I was recognizing? Well, if you're ever feeling nervous or tense, be sure to look out for feelings of nausea, difficulty focusing, shortness of breath, increased heart rate, sweating, or even trembling. So then, now let's imagine that we recognize these in ourselves. How do we respond to it now? Well, of course, there's some methods I'm sure we're all aware of, like exercise, eating better, getting enough sleep. All these are viable methods, but I think Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neurologist, says it really well when he says that exercise is good, sleep is good, moving is good. Everyone knows that, but life happens. There's no telling how our body might respond to the different stimuli we encounter on a daily basis. So it's important that we have a method of quickly alleviating these feelings of anxiety. So the solution I propose is something known as the physiological sigh. So it's a breathing technique, and before I have you guys write this off as, oh, it's just another mindfulness technique, this isn't just that. Mindfulness can be helpful for a lot of people, but this is a method of physiologically attacking anxiety within ourselves. So what is it? It's it's a breathing technique, like I said. It's 2 inhales followed by a long exhale, and I'll show us how to do it after I explain some of the science of it. But basically, when our bodies get stressed, our breathing becomes shallow, and the alveoli in our lungs, which are tiny sacs of gases exchange, they tend to collapse as our breathing becomes shallow, like I said. And this can contribute to carbon dioxide building up on our bloodstream, which then contributes to this feeling of stress. But the double inhale in the physiological sigh is especially effective at re-inflating these sacs, so then the subsequent exhale is then much more effective at ridding our body of carbon dioxide. And it's an occurrence that can immediately help us reduce these feelings of stress. So we're all gonna do it together now really quickly. So ready, we're gonna have one long inhale, so it's another inhale, then a long exhale. Now we're gonna do it one more time because I saw some people not doing it. So ready, we're gonna have a long inhale, another inhale, then a long exhale. Yeah, and again, it's only gonna take doing this breathing take 2 to 3 times and to alleviate these feelings of stress. Like I started to feel myself kind of calm down after doing that. So in conclusion, I hope we all leave here with not just a better ability to recognize and respond to the anxiety within ourselves, but I hope that you go from here and exchange this information with others around you. Because having a method of proactively responding to anxiety is maybe one of the most valuable tools any one of us could have. Thank you.